Some time ago, I accepted an invitation to show up for several very intensive and cloistered and inescapable days at a meeting I did not particularly want to be at. It was a meeting of senior clergy leaders from around the country, of large congregations with different perspectives and different stories and different backgrounds, and we were gathered there, we senior leaders of the Church of Tomorrow, to talk about nothing less difficult and challenging and heartbreaking than excavating the very roots of American racism itself. Now, I will be honest, I knew most of the players who had been invited to gather themselves up in that room. I knew most of their perspectives more or less on the conversation we were about to have, and I did not agree with at least half of them on at least half of the most salient and divisive points we were going to discuss over the course of those 4 days. In fact, I also knew my own place in the proverbial picking order and where I stood in the family of things among these people. And if I am being quite honest, I felt awkward and small and overpowered, like the dog sitting under the porch when all the people are up there having the big time conversations. I was twitchy and I was anxious and I was nervous. And on the first day when we gathered to show up for these 4 days of deep conversations, which were going to be divisive and going to be argumentative, and where people I respect were going to say things that made me mad, the facilitator began by inviting us all there, sitting in a great big circle, me twitching away, invited us all to close our eyes. He said, "Close your eyes right now. Don't look around. Close your eyes right now." And when we dutifully did as we were told, he told us, "Imagine the room that you are in. I want you to think about this space which you have never been in before. I want you to spin around in your head and imagine where you are sitting, where other people are sitting. Where are the exits in this room?" he said. "Where are the ways out of this room?" he said. And we did a whole meditated thing where we sat and we pondered all the realities. Where's the bathroom? Where's the coffee? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then he invited us to come back into the space, to open our eyes, to reflect on which of us knew exactly where all the exits were, had gamed that whole space out ahead of time, and had everyone in the room's number. He told us to look around with our eyes open and see what we had gotten wrong and gotten right about that room that we had never seen before. He asked us to look around and think about where we had chosen to sit in that room where there were no assigned seats. And the truth is that I did not need to open my eyes to know how many exits were in that room, because I had gamed it out from the moment I set in the door. I knew where all 4 exits were, including the emergency exit, which was right to my right and easily accessible should I need to get out of it. I knew exactly where my best friends were seated in that room, and I had put myself so that the sight lines to their waiting eyes were nice and clear, and I knew where all the people whose opinions I suspected would be dodgy were in that room. I had gamed it. I had assessed it. I had seated myself with my back near no entrances so I could see who was coming in and who was going out. I had pre-assessed the motivations and opinions of everyone in the room, and I sure as hell knew how to leave if I needed to. Our facilitator invited us back into the space. He said, "Now you know where the exits are. Know that you are always able to use them. Now actually stop worrying and for a moment allow yourself to show up." Which I did, and I won't tell you the whole gory details, except it eventually involved me weeping in front of 40 of the most senior clergy in this country. It was real work. The point is that in that room, in that time, doing something challenging and uncomfortable, I had affected a kind of situational awareness. a constant state of anxiety that soldiers in every war, in every country, in every era of this nation's history know all too well, an ability to walk into a space and game it out. In the middle of a cozy carpeted room among colleagues, I had used a tool of heightened awareness that every soldier knows keeps you alive when everything is at risk. It is the tingle in the spine that tells the infantry there's someone hiding around the corner. It is the crack of a branch in the forest that indicates there might be more than birds nesting in the trees. It is the location and readiness of every soldier in your unit, the tingling, live-eyed assessment of threat, the ability to get out at a moment's notice. Situational awareness keeps soldiers alive. It brings young people home. It is the tool that extracts people from deadly situations, that tells a teenage girl with a giant weapon where exactly she should point it. Situational awareness, such as I demonstrated in that moment among colleagues talking about the reality of American racism. Situational awareness is not meant for comfortable, carpeted places, but for deeply risky ones, where somebody might not come back if you aren't keeping it frosty, if you're not paying attention to each nuance, if you are not reading the room for every single thing in that room that could hurt you, and who in that room you can count on when things get bad. The trouble, every soldier will tell you, is not the skill of situational awareness at all. It is trying to take that heightened state of alert and attention off once you have gotten home. It is to walk around the grocery store and try not to game out the potential threats in the produce aisle. It is to move in the world in such a way that the world feels safe again and people feel like people again. In fact, not just for soldiers, but for anyone who has come through significant trauma and survived, the trick is trying to get back to a way of being where one's baseline assumption about the environment you are in is empathy instead of constant and unrelenting risk assessment. That is a lifetime of work that veterans face. Coming home and relearning in as much as it is possible how not to game out every single room you enter. It is the lifetime of work that any among us with significant histories of trauma face, how to be in the world, how to be in our country, how to be in our homes without always expending the energy necessary to assess the risk of those environments. It is not an exact science, it's nuanced. Because the awareness that keeps us alive, always just under the surface, ready to do its job again if threats present themselves, can also exhaust us. This heightened awareness is meant to be a tool for dangerous times, not a default setting for every room we enter. And yet there I was, in a comfortable chair, not at risk of really anything more than my own discomfort. There I was, nothing more than nervous, anxiety heightening my attention because we were going to talk about contentious things in a room full of people I did not fully trust, one of whom was me. And I found myself applying that situational awareness to a conference room full of colleagues, ready to get out the moment it got weird. And I wonder how many of us, in times of heightened anxiety, politically or otherwise, especially here in the backyard of our nation's capital, I wonder how many of us find ourselves around conference tables, seated in comfortable chairs with far more than our own awkwardness and discomfort at stake. I wonder how many of us find ourselves gaming out every room we walk into. I wonder how many of us find ourselves assessing the risk at every moment, sizing up our neighbors, wondering which person across the table is likely to cause harm, determining not only where the exits are, but where the power lies and who in every room is against us. I remember the school bus stop the morning after Election Day on November 9th, 2016. Almost every parent standing there in shocked silence. The kids weirdly hushed as they filed into the bus without the bright chaos of a usual Wednesday morning. Soon rumors started to circulate. This class parent maybe worked for the new administration, maybe that one didn't. And suddenly each of us were gaming out our families too. Had Uncle Jim really voted that way? And did he actually feel good about it, or at least somewhat conflicted? Who was with me? Who was against? What had we done, and who among us had done it? For some of us, we moved in the world in those anxious days with a heightened state of situational awareness, trying to understand who was for us and who was against, and where the lines were really drawn and what battle was being raged or would be raged the moment our backs would turn. Here in the DC region, so many of us looked at each other and at the world with what Richard Blanco calls November eyes. Eyes that assess, eyes that take note, that tally. In his words, driving around in his own hometown on that same November 9th, the morning after Election Day not so long ago, he wrote, "I question everyone, everything, even the sun as I drive down Main Street, radio off to Amy's diner. She bobby pins her hair, smiles her usual good morning, but her eyes askew say something like, 'Can you believe this?' as she wipes the counter, tosses aside the Journal Times. The election headlines are bitter as the coffee she pours for me without a blink. After a cup and a blueberry muffin, I remember my bills are due on the 15th, so I cross Main Street to the post office. Those American flag stamps are the only ones Debbie has left. I refuse to buy them. A never mind in my eyes, which she dismisses with a gesture of suit yourself. Bills can wait, but not my dog's treats or the milk I'm out of. So I drive up Main Street again to the food basket. Paper or plastic, Jan asked me at the checkout, but it doesn't matter. What matters is this: she has been to my barbecues. I have donated to her son's football league. We have shoveled each other's driveways. We send each other Christmas cards. She knows I'm Latino and gay, yet suddenly I don't know who she is as I read the button on her polyester vest. Trump, make America great again, meaning she doesn't really know me either. We manage smiles when she hands me my change, but our locked eyes say nothing. Do you remember that? Walking into every room, every occasion wondering who is for and who is against. Do you live like that still? The constant state of attention, of wordless assessment and hinted communication, where every teenager in a red hat looks like a cartoon villain, and perhaps if looking through different eyes, every hipster scooter-riding bro in the streets of DC looks like a possible enemy in a wrinkled suit. Like the facilitator in the workshop I went to, we might say, close your eyes and think on the world. Do you see all the exits? Do you know where your friends are, how close you are to the ones who make you nervous? Do you hear dog whistles in the world that tell you who to trust and who to fight against? Can you perceive the location from which the risks might come, the location of those who have your back? Without a word, can you raise your eyebrows at those who will understand and protect yourself against those who won't? How can you assess someone's risk or what you care about without asking them directly, are you with him, with her, with me, with them, with those other ones who perhaps you might be suspicious of? At heightened attention, are you listening for the wordless commitments that let you know who to trust and who to fear, and how tired you are of gaming every room you walk into? How tired you are, how tired. But the returning soldiers from every war, carrying the skill learned from 1,000 battles, they teach us again and again the cost of bearing this situational awareness in every room we enter. They remind us that in all that vigilance, what room is left for love? Generation after generation, they learn and relearn the skill of staying in the room, even when it's scary. Generation after generation, the soldiers teach us what it's like to remember how to be fully human in and through it all. And you know, I used to say that the way to love your country is to fight for its ideals. And I still kind of believe that, except for the inconvenient fact that so many of our country's ideals were built upon institutions that presupposed oppression, like slavery and patriarchy and the fact that over half of the people in this nation weren't considered fully people in a political or personal sense at all. That is situational awareness that I cannot undo, nor can you. We cannot take it off or unknow it. But from listening to the soldiers' stories, I have also learned that you can love your country because of the people within it who love you back. That you can fight for the person to the right of you and the left of you, the ones who won't come home without you. And perhaps even more importantly, we can love our country. Even when we know where all the exits are, we can love our country by staying in the room anyway. We can love it not because we have idealized it or fooled ourselves into thinking we are all safe, but because we know the lay of the land enough that so knowing we can choose to stay in the conversation even if it makes us weep. Perhaps we can love our country not by absolving it or each other, but by continuing to show up for each other, not stalking the forests of DC with ears perpetually at attention, but looking at this place we share with its risks and its rewards, its burdens and its blessings, as the only place we might call our home. In this time of heightened risk, we move in our country with November eyes, the eyes of experience, assessment, and anxiety. And sometimes when we let ourselves, when we open up what was once closed in us, we might decide to stay in the room. We might find that we are safer and more powerful than we knew, more capable of being each other's people in and through it all. Stay in the room. Stay in this together. Amid all the risk and resistance, there is still room for every single one of us.